Genshin Impact is a game that stood out as the most popular anime-style game on the market. And beyond that, it's a game that has brought in audiences from all sorts of genres all over the world. Where some games may primarily have their player bases centralized to a few different countries, Genshin being on mobile and capitalizing on anime and pop culture allowed it to explode in popularity within an extremely short time. But what exactly makes it such a popular game? You could argue that combat, story, and exploration are all key components of Genshin's success, and you'd be right. The core foundation of a good game is all there. But there are plenty of good games. What sets Genshin apart is more than that. Genshin's attention to detail, blend of fantasy with modern, cultural representation and setting all contribute to the immersion and widespread success of the game. One of the biggest ways these ideas are portrayed is through the music. You'll feel this immersion in places like Mondstadt with your standard orchestral music, and later moving to Liyue, where there's many traditional Chinese instruments as well as plenty of use of pentatonics. A great example of cultural representation in Genshin Impact is in the piece Devastation and Redemption. When Hoyoverse flew me out to the Genshin Impact concert, I got to see this performed live, and it made me want to make this video because I don't feel like most players understand the musical genius that goes into Genshin's soundtrack. I don't claim to be a music expert or anything, but I did get my bachelor's in music, so I do have a foundational knowledge of things, and when you see a masterpiece like a Genshin Impact soundtrack, it's really hard not to talk about it. Devastation and Redemption is a work that brings traditional Peking opera to a game where many players come from different parts of the world. Peking opera, also called Beijing opera, is a form of Chinese storytelling opera that began to form in the late 18th century, where the orchestra captures the civil story and percussion ramps up for battle. It's been an important part of Chinese culture since its conception, but developed further in the 19th century and became more popularized. Yu Pengchen wanted to capture that cultural phenomenon through a variety of musical decisions, such as using traditional Chinese instrumentation and following Peking opera conventions. It's actually super interesting how they pulled all this together. With traditional Peking opera, you have different roles to be played, with different styles of attire and makeup to define each. Fun fact, Yunjin actually has a lot of makeup on for a Genshin character with her eyeshadow. And as you can see from her outfit design, she's got some complex, decorative, and symbolic ornamentation. And they've talked about it in an interview how they wanted Yunjin to represent opera in China. So very clearly these were intentional decisions, and they worked out pretty well. Her design is super interesting and one of my personal favorites. Now when it comes to music, Yu Pengchen has done amazing work capturing different styles and instrumentation based on the region or moment in time. And for this performance, traditional Chinese instruments were featured, like the Chinese flute known as the dizi. The dizi in this live performance duets the melody and soars high above the rest of the texture, almost like a bird taking to the sky. It is a really cool effect. Other instruments like the pipa can be heard in traditional Chinese storytelling, the sound of the plucked strings often decorating the scene. Even if you're someone who is only involved with Western music, you've probably heard this sound somewhere before. The erhu is another string instrument, but played with a bow, creating a sound that has a resonance almost like a human voice. However, not like the voice of the opera singers though, which is meant to sound forward, sharp, and cutting in order to be heard by everyone at the performance. After all, Peking opera was being performed long before stages had microphones. Vocalists had to project and cut through the sound of the winds, strings, and percussion, which is why Yunjin's opera vocalist had such a distinctive tone. If you listen to the original cutscene in-game, it can be harder to pick out the instrumentation just because of how the audio was mixed and blended for how Hoyoverse wanted it to be heard. The concert, however, allowed traditional Chinese instruments to be featured, and through Genshin Impact, many people all over the world were able to experience a look into traditional Chinese music and instrumentation. Sometimes, though, traditional isn't enough to keep the interest of the entire world. Music has come a long way from the 18th century, and there's new ways to play and perform music, as well as new instruments and styles. And, well, that's exactly what Yu Pengchen capitalized on. Bringing attention to a particular culture or practice is difficult. Someone from America may never truly begin to understand the significance of certain motifs, performances, or foods from another country, for example. And some people also choose to actively ignore those sorts of differences. Yupeng Chen understands this and has modernized the way Genshin Impact does music. Rather than only using traditional winds, strings, and percussion, Genshin Impact features a wide roster of instruments to produce sound. You can hear it in character demos, tons of synths and trap mixing, as well as modern and electronic instruments.
Only through eternity are you closest to the heavenly principles.
I don't know, maybe it's canon to the lore that Ayaka's got AirPods in and is listening to the Raiden Shogun theme, but from the outside looking in, it seems a little unlikely. In the case of Devastation and Redemption, there's a modern drum kit as well as electric guitar and bass, which allows the music to reach and entice a wider audience. Those who may be interested in rock and roll may not be interested in Peking opera, especially if they haven't heard anything like it before. But in the magic of Genshin Impact and Liyue, when both are combined into a wonderfully crafted fusion and put to masterful storytelling, you have an incredible teaching resource to involve many cultures around the world with a little bit of Peking opera.
今日再会，新朋旧友坐满堂。
The magic that Genshin brings is not only based on the worldwide effect it's had, however. The immersion that's created via the world, sound design, and music is on another level. With many characters having distinct traits to their themes and various parts of the Genshin world, it's almost as if Yupeng Chen is training the player, evoking certain emotions when specific characters and moments arise. An amazing example of this is with the Fatui, where there's a very distinct motif that can be heard across all of the Fatui appearances. It can be heard here in the Fatui interlude teaser.
As a banker, that sounds a little unconscionable.
Rosaline died in a foreign land. But you heartless businessmen and dignitaries, always with a convenient excuse to remain in the comfort of your homeland, you couldn't hope to understand.
Here in the child boss fight, and also here in Signora's boss fight. The theme is menacing, and when put to the right setting, really creates an unsettling feeling in your gut. Every time it plays, you know there's something sinister going on. The Signora fight theme, something I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, is a combination of the Fatui theme with fast-paced combat music. The very beginning is militaristic, almost like mobilizing an army for a fight, with a drum pattern similar to military cadences. After that, it feels frantic, as you see Signora using the rest of her power to try and get rid of you, despite the fact that she's losing. Like other boss fights, the Signora boss theme features modern instrumentation combined with Latin chorus. And due to how infrequent the use of chorus is in this way in Genshin Impact, it creates an effect that makes you feel the power of the enemy. It's even used for Ajdaha, who's not Fatui, but gets the point across. Despite the fact that your triple-crowned Ayaka can shred through her second phase at about 10 seconds, the first time you encounter Signora, it's likely that you felt the impact of that chorus in the background. This is an important battle, and that is a powerful enemy. What ties it all together is the effect that modern instrumentation brings. By orchestrating synth, metal, and drum and bass style, Yupeng Chen creates a mix that captures all of Signora's storytelling up until that moment, the Snezhnaya nationalism when the soloist enters and the music texture gets cut thin, as well as mixing in all of her crimson flames and immense power. Signora's boss theme, both first and second phase, are a perfect example of storytelling through music and also incorporating modern instrumentation into a fantasy setting. Genshin Impact is one of the few games that executes this perfectly. There are many things that cause a player to be lost in the world of Genshin Impact, from the expansive cast to the open world representing many different cultures. Yupeng Chen ties it all together with a masterpiece of a soundtrack that tells stories while combining traditional cultural titled music with more modern, globally popularized sounds. By establishing various themes and including a multitude of styles, they've managed to make a cultural center for different parts of the world within Genshin Impact. Players from all over the world are introduced to music from all over the world, which is truly a magical thing. And though it's not the entire reason, the musical score is a huge reason why Genshin Impact feels so immersive. If you guys have enjoyed this video, let me know because I actually have a lot of plans to do music content on the channel if this is something you guys are into. And of course, if the YouTube algorithm likes it. Speaking of which, if you want to help out with that, you can make sure to leave a like on the video and comment something nice. Or you could even just let me know what your favorite musical score from Genshin Impact is and why you like it. As always, go live on Twitch a few days a week, twitch.tv/Braxophone. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Thanks to Genshin Impact for flying me out to the concert, and I'll catch you guys next time.